So after 3 years being a customer of Cloudways hosting and recommending it to a lot of people, I think I'm about to switch companies. So let's talk about that. I've been around when it comes to web hosting. I've used a lot of different companies, but for the last 3 years, I have been using Cloudways, and I remain a big fan of Cloudways in many ways. However, I've come to the decision that I think it's time for me to move on, and I may be bringing some of my clients with me, depending on how they want to play it. But I want to talk about just informally here. This is not going to be an official review of the new company that I'm going to, but I want to talk about why I am leaving Cloudways, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the new company that I'm switching to called Rocket at rocket.net. But let's first talk about Cloudways itself. A lot of people these days, they seem to always want to categorize things in really bipolar camps. It's either good or it's evil. It's awesome or it sucks. And that's not the way the real world works. And it definitely doesn't work that way with hosting. There are very few hosting companies out there that I would say are just overall bad. There are a few, like for example, Bluehost. I'll be open. I think using Bluehost is probably a mistake for almost anybody. But that's just my personal opinion. With most hosts, there's a combination of really good things and some that are just annoying. And that's just the nature of it. And that remains the case with Cloudways. Now, Cloudways, I went to them for a really solid reason. I wanted more control over my server. I wanted to have more memory allotted to my website. I like the way the control panel works. I came over to Cloudways from WPX hosting. Now, WPX is fully managed WordPress hosting, and they're very good. I just thought that their control panel was the biggest piece of crap I ever saw in my life. And I recently logged in, and it still is. It's ugly. Like, why? Why all the orange? Anyways, so Cloudways was like a breath of fresh air to me. I liked the pricing of it. And one of the other things I really liked about it is that they still had the live chat support. I personally am a big fan of live chat support. I'm not the kind of person who wants to call on the phone. Some people are, but I like live chat support. I would rather not also deal with people via email tickets. Although email tickets are fine, and I'm noticing that Rocket.net is really fast at email too, but they have live chat support, which is great. But that live chat support is one of the things that I liked about Cloudways, and it served me well. The thing is, I am not your typical client of Cloudways in the fact that I'm just managing my own stuff. And if I was just managing my own stuff, I might not make this switch. But there are a few things that go along with managing a lot of other people's sites too, which I do with Cloudways. And then there are some performance issues that I do want to talk about with Cloudways. Things started to change when DigitalOcean purchased Cloudways. And I forgot what month they did that, but when they purchased it, I was looking at it with caution. And that's because my beloved web host was changing. You know, anytime there's an acquisition by another company, things can change. Even if they say they're not going to change, things can change. I mean, if we look at what Awesome Motive has just done to Thrive Themes, they're basically killing it. It's the worst thing I've seen. But with Cloudways and DigitalOcean, the first thing that I noticed is that they removed the option to sign up for Vultr virtual private servers. I happen to be a fan of Vultr. I prefer Vultr over DigitalOcean. I personally feel as if the inferior network just purchased Cloudways. Now, as a person who has an existing account, I can still spin up Vultr servers, but it's like, you know, so now when I recommend Cloudways to somebody else, I feel as if they are getting the inferior VPS because it's through DigitalOcean. It's not as if DigitalOcean is bad. It's just that I think Vultr's better. They've got more data center options and things like that. And the Vultr high frequency tends to be a really good VPS option. And you can't get it anymore. Okay, and so that I don't like. And then they changed the pricing. They increased the pricing on everybody. And the way that Cloudways works, they basically, well, it's supposed to be double the price of what the VPS would cost if you went to the provider directly. But in my case, it actually seems to be a little higher than that. Like the server that I'm using for the Blog Marketing Academy would cost me only $24 a month if I were to get it directly from Vulture. I'm paying Cloudway $60. So it's over 2x, okay? Now, there's a value to that. They are providing the control panel. They provide the live chat support. I actually don't mind that. The thing is, the numbers start to change when you start adding more servers to the mix. So that's the thing. I'm managing not only my own sites, but I'm managing clients inside of Cloudways. And when you start adding more servers to the mix, that 2x or more on the server starts to really add up. And I feel like I'm overpaying. And the thing is, let's say that I have a concierge client come in, and I'd really like to be able to offer my concierge clients, by the way, solid web hosting. The problem is Cloudways makes that difficult for me to do because of the dynamics of their pricing. And I can't put one of my clients on the cheapest server. It's not going to serve them well. They need a minimum of the 2 gigabyte of RAM. Some people need more than that. And then so I'm paying 2x for the control panel, even though I don't need the control panel. I'm already paying for the control panel for other servers. And so the pricing model of Cloudways just gets to be kind of stupid when you start adding multiple servers to the mix. Let's talk about the performance. Now, overall, I will say I've been fairly happy with the performance of Cloudways, but there's a big asterisk on there, and it really depends on when you're using your server. Because here's what I've noticed with Cloudways is that sometimes you notice it in the back end more than anything. The server just is slow. And not only that, sometimes it literally just crashes. It's not always that noticeable from the front end, but in the back end, you notice the problems even more. And so I've had it many times where I will be working on a blog post, for example, and I will save it and the database will crash. And so WordPress will say, it failed to save. And then when I go to the front end, it says, I forgot how it's phrased, but essentially it can't establish a database connection. Like essentially the MySQL process for the database just crashed. And I got to wait for it to come back. And so it's something where the server load is just spiking up over that action of saving the post, and it kills off my database for a minute. Sometimes I've had it where I'm working with a client and that client and myself might be inside of their WordPress admin at the same time, and it just dogs really bad. It just slows way the heck down. Now, here's the thing. I don't just blame that on Cloudways. It's a twofer, because here's the thing. I have sites that run multiple plugins. They are pretty good quality plugins because I don't mess around with crappy plugins. But that being said, WordPress, when you add plugins to it, is going to tend to beef up, and every plugin's a little bit different. And so there's definitely an aspect here of that plugins could cause the problem. But here's the thing. When you're paying for a 4 gig server with 2 virtual processors, blah, 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 you think the specs would be able to handle something, even with other plugins involved, of saving a blog post. And the thing is, I can't always put my finger on it with Cloudways. Sometimes the thing's going fine. Other times it's slower than molasses. I don't know the difference. Sometimes maybe in the morning when the server is performing backup operations and other maintenance things, then it's really hard for me to get anything done with the site because the database will crash and stuff like that. And so one of the things that I've been finding with Cloudways is that I have to pay too much attention to the server resources, or looking at the monitoring area and seeing, hey, do I have peaked out CPU load, or am I running out of memory? Do I need to go into the PHP settings and increase my memory settings per PHP process? Should I have to think about that stuff? Now, in the world of a virtual private server, the answer is, yeah, I kind of have to deal with that kind of stuff sometimes. And every site's a little bit different. But the thing is, there are definitely hosts out there that have a more managed environment where I don't have to think about that stuff very much. And that's an issue. Now, the other thing, too, I'll just speak very briefly on the tech stack, is that I know that Cloudways is using, I'm not going to say an archaic tech stack, it's not, but it's not the most efficient. It's just using Apache and some of the standard stuff you see on a LAMP server. whereas other options that are more streamlined are using faster software and more tweaked out setups with light speed and stuff like that. I don't want to get like too nerdy here, but I do feel as if Cloudways, it's almost as if it's not ideally set up for performance as much as they say it might be set up for performance. Or if you want that performance, you need to really beef up the server with even more horsepower, which I could have done. I could have thrown more money at the problem, but I don't really know if that would solve the problem. And so that's kind of where it is. Performance with Cloudways is a bit of a mixed bag, and I can't quite put my finger on it because sometimes it's great, other times it's not. It kind of goes up and down, and you kind of feel like you're dancing on eggshells sometimes on whether the server is going to be operating fine or whether it's going to be crashing. There's also some things about the control panel I really wish they would fix, and they don't seem to do it. The control panel has pretty much looked exactly the same ever since I arrived, and it's nice looking, it's very professional. They did come out with this new Cloudways experience, like this new styled control panel, but that's really all it was just a style change. It didn't actually give any new capability at all, and that's really where it needs to be. So here's the thing. One thing I really don't like about Cloudways, I wish they would fix it, is that when you start an operation on the server, such as adding an app, or you need to change the primary domain on an app or something like that, the whole server just locks up. It's not like it's still going, but you can't do anything in the control panel. You basically have to sit there and wait, go get a cup of coffee or something. Like if you go to add an app and do the one-click install of WordPress, it'll take a couple minutes, which is cool. But for those 2 minutes, you literally cannot do anything else. That's it. You have to sit there and wait. That's stupid. I don't understand why that is. And some operations just take too long. Like, why does adding a domain or making a domain change, why does it take so long to sit there and chug? And sometimes the control panel won't even update me that it's actually done. I have to refresh the entire browser window just to find out it actually already finished, and it never told me. So that's kind of stupid. The other thing is that being that I'm what I do for a living, I'm in a lot of other people's websites. And so I've got not only client sites that are hosted under my own account, but I have many different client accounts that I jump in and out of via the little drop down at the top of the control panel where I have team member access, and I can go into people's accounts and I can access their server and stuff like that. But they really have not put any time into making this thing usable for agencies like myself. All I have is a drop down up there with the client's first name, only the first name, and their email address. And I can scroll through this big long drop down in order to try to find the client that I need to get into their server. And then I can hit it and I can go into their account. But I have no ability to control what's inside that drop down. If somebody adds me as a team member, I don't have any ability to revoke it. It's like I have to go and ask a client that might be a former client or somebody whose project I've already finished. And I would be like, hey, can you remove me as a team member so you don't show up in my account anymore? Why should I have to ask the client to do that? I should be able to do it myself. So it's just nagging when you have to go into Cloudways so often and access people's accounts like that. It's like if Cloudways wants to be friendly to people who bring in a higher volume of accounts, like somebody who's in the business like myself, they don't set it up very well for that. It's actually kind of an annoying setup. Cloudways really is set up best for people who are just running their own sites. They might have one server in there with a few websites. It's going to be fine for that. But for somebody who has higher volume needs, it gets to be annoying really quickly. Okay, so let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit about why I chose Rocket at Rocket.net. Now, again, this is not going to be a review of Rocket.net. I'm kind of just talking off the cuff here about my thought process of switching. So basically, what I have found in the business, I'm in a lot of different groups, and I do keep my ear to the ground on different opinions on different web hosts. And I do find that some hosts, they get a pretty fairly universally crappy feedback, like Bluehost, frankly. Those of us who do anything with websites, we know Bluehost sucks. I don't, people like WP Beginner who are going to keep promoting Bluehost, they're only doing it for the money. Ignore them. All right. Then you get those hosts that you get a mixed bag with. You're going to see a lot of people say they're fine. You're going to have other people say, oh, yeah, I've had problems with them. And that's honestly a lot of web hosts. Most web hosts, you're going to get a lot of people who are happy. You're going to get a lot of people who, or maybe not even a lot, but some people who are like, yeah, I don't like it. I found better things elsewhere. That's sort of where Cloudways falls in. Cloudways has a lot of fans. I still consider myself to be one, by the way. I like Cloudways. But then you got others who have found greener pastures elsewhere. And then when we start looking at the companies that Cloudways is often compared to, a lot of people in my business look at GridPane. GridPane looked solid. And in fact, I do have a free GridPane thing. I actually may be spinning up a Vultr server with them. But it didn't look like the right fit for me the way that I wanted it to work. And the other thing is that I don't really like the way GridPane looks in the back end, but that's just a personal opinion. There's RunCloud, but I was getting some feedback that RunCloud is really good. I get mostly positive feedback with RunCloud. However, some people were saying that some things are a little bit nerdy and there's some DIY stuff. They might have to do some things via the command line. Heard that with GridPane too, by the way. I didn't want to deal with that. I think what happened is I just got myself into the mood of, I use WordPress. A fully managed WordPress solution would just sort of be ideal, so I don't have to think about any of the stupid server stuff anymore. And with RunCloud and GridPane, I would still be using virtual private servers, and I would still have to think about some of that stuff, and I don't want to. Rocket.net was coming up, and it was like really, really good feedback. I was not finding anybody who was complaining about Rocket.net. And then what was even really interesting, and shout out to him for doing this, but I noticed that Patrick Gallagher, who's the CEO of GridPane, who I have a lot of respect for his opinions on this stuff, he even said he loves Rocket.net. I think he made some comment I thought was quite hilarious about it. That's where he would host his family's websites if it wasn't for GridPane. Like that's his number 2 option, which I respect that. GridPane is not set up for your average, just your normal person who's just hosting a few websites. It's not. The pricing is kind of high for that. It's set up for people who are really running a full-on agency business. And so he knows that. And so he says, and then he says Rocket.net. And I did see an interview with both Ben, who's the CEO of Rocket.net, and Patrick, and they were on there with Kyle from the admin bar. And I just got good vibes about the whole thing. I mean, there's a lot of experience behind Rocket.net. A lot of people are saying that the support is incredibly fast. And I will say, holy hell, is it fast? It is actually the fastest support I've ever seen, even compared to WPX hosting, which I stayed with them for a while because their live chat support was so fast. I think Rocket.net just beat them. Holy hell, they're fast. And they talk to me like they know what they're doing, and it's like a coworker. It's a little bit different than Cloudways, that's based overseas. And sometimes when you're talking to them, you can kind of tell there's just a difference. I think Rocket.net is literally based right here in Florida with me. Now, I know they've got, workers around, but the core company's based, I could drive there in a couple of hours. That's really cool. That's attractive to me. They've got really, really good support. It's really, really fast because they have a really, really tight integration in with Cloudflare. So what's going on is you're getting the full benefits of Cloudflare Enterprise, not the little add-on deal that you get with Cloudways that's not kind of half-baked and it's not really doing everything. You're getting the full enchilada through Rocket.net. And so things are really fast. You've got that CDN that's just native because you're operating really close to the edge with Cloudflare. When any of your traffic does need to hit the server directly, you're dealing with a much beefier server. We're not talking about some 2 virtual processor 4 gig thing like I'm paying for with Cloudways. It is significantly beefier than that. And so which means that I'm going to get higher performance just if the traffic gets there. But a lot of traffic's probably not ever even going to arrive at the core server because it's being delivered by Cloudflare directly. It's going to make for a much faster experience. Now, the control panel of Rocket.net is fully managed WordPress. It's native. It just works with WordPress. You can see your themes and plugins right in there. I think I can even automate updates and stuff through them. It's not a paid add-on. It's just normal. There are a lot of things there that it looks to me like it's designed to make life simpler, which I'm kind of in the mood for right now after getting out of Cloudways. Anyway, so that is what's going on with the hosting. I think I'm going to end up being a really large and massive fan of Rocket.net. It doesn't mean I'm going to start ripping on Cloudways. I'm not. It's just that, there's a market fit there. And I think what's going on is that Cloudways is a good fit for certain types of customers. And they tend not to be in the business of WordPress like I am, where I'm managing a lot of different people. I think that really changes the dynamics of things quite a bit. But not only that, there's something to be said for the fully managed experience. There are web hosting companies out there that have a better technology stack behind the scenes, so you don't have to geek out so much and, worry about varnish caching and object caching and whether, and all that. There's, Cloudways has a lot of great things, but it does require a little bit more nerd. And I'm a nerd, all right? But, at the end of the day, I got a business to run here. I want to be able to offer the best service to my clients. I'd like to be able to offer my concierge clients actual hosting that I don't have to sit there and baby. I think that Rocket.net is going to serve this for me. So coming up, I'm sure that I will be providing a real review of Rocket.net. I'm not there yet. We're still early days, and it will take a little bit of time. I just wanted to talk about why I'm making the switch. I also wanted to provide some feedback because I'm sure Cloudways might be interested in how they can make some things better. And that's about it. So this has just been a really informal video, just you and me. I'm just talking about why I'm switching web host. If any of it's of interest to you, then great. If you've been looking at Cloudways, well, there's some feedback for you. But you might want to check out Rocket.net. A lot of great web hosts out there. It's just a matter of finding the one that fits you the best. But I'll be following up with a full review of Rocket.net in the not too distant future. All right, I will talk to you guys later on.